Sometimes people have seen it more than that. But it's still a very good way of showing a synopsis of UPF activities worldwide in a short space of time. So let's go with the introduction to UPF, which was from
UPF had its inaugural assembly on September 12, 2005 at the Lincoln Center in New York City. Reverend Sun Myung Moon delivered the keynote address.
In closing, I ask you to devote your best efforts for the development and the success of the Universal Peace Federation. Thank you. Thank you.
After UPF was founded, there was a series of world tours where the message of UPF was taken literally to every corner of the world.
That it is time for all nations and religions to break down their barriers. Through this, the era of one family under God will arrive and last forever.
UPF is God's cherished hope. The founders spoke repeatedly of an international peace highway connecting the world from Santiago, Chile to London, across the Bering Strait, what has come to be known as the Peace Road, and a vision for a renewed United Nations. UPF emerged on the foundation of decades of programs initiated by its founders and carried out in all parts of the world. Its growth and development over the past 15 years has been dramatic, if not miraculous, owing in large part to the work of tens of thousands of ambassadors for peace, peace activists, and volunteers who draw from all nationalities, religions, ethnicities, cultures, and traditions, bound together by a vision of peace, a vision of humanity as one global family under one God. The range of programs over the years has been both broad and expansive, from character education to strengthening the family, from conflict prevention to conflict resolution, from poverty reduction to environmental stewardship, from interfaith dialogue to youth service initiatives, from support of the United Nations to partnerships with the African Union, and a wide range of international organizations and NGOs. UPF has a global, multinational, multi-faith network of more than 100,000 ambassadors for peace who support and contribute to the mission and works of UPF. UPF's highest award, the Leadership and Good Governance Award, has been given to distinguished leaders the world over. The World Summit Series is UPF's flagship program involving the highest level of leaders from around the globe, including current and former heads of state and government, to address the critical challenges facing humanity.
Very appropriate that we are here on the 100th anniversary of Reverend Moon's birth, because out of the devastation of World War II and the Korean War, he and his bride found the courage to dream that they could achieve something. And it is amazing what they have created together.
Programs have been successfully held in Korea, the USA, Senegal, South Africa, Nepal, Cambodia, and other nations. The most recent structural innovation within UPF has been the creation of a set of associations dedicated to collaboration among leaders from various fields. These pillar associations are: the International Summit Council for Peace was initiated by UPF co-founder Dr. Hak Jahan Moon in 2019 on the occasion of World Summit 2019 in Seoul, Korea. ISCP is an international network of current and former heads of state and government. The International Association of First Ladies, IAFLP, a project of the ISCP, affirms and uplifts the unique role of First Ladies in contributing to peace and development. IAFLP brings together current and former First Ladies from throughout the world, drawing upon their experience and wisdom as women leaders and as role models who serve their countries in significant ways. The International Association of Parliamentarians for Peace, IAPP, is a worldwide association of parliamentarians which provides a forum to bring their experience and wisdom to bear in the search for solutions to our world's problems. UPF maintains that any successful strategy for peace must take into account the spiritual dimension of our human identity, experience, and interactions. Based on this worldview, UPF initiated the Interreligious Association for Peace and Development, IAPD. The International Media Association for Peace, IMAP, represents a worldwide professional network of journalists who support a socially responsible and moral media. IMAP recognizes the vital role that journalists play in providing objective reporting to foster an informed citizenship. The International Association of Academicians for Peace, IAAP, is a global interdisciplinary academic initiative aimed at contributing toward the realization of a world of lasting peace. IAAP is dedicated to building professional networks for academicians to foster a world of peace. The International Association for Peace and Economic Development, IAED, affirms the role of businesses, business leaders, and investors to make the world a better place. In early 2020, UPF convened a rally of hope featuring dignitaries including Pastor Paula White, Cambodia Head of State His Excellency Hun Sen, President Macky Sall of Senegal, former Canadian Prime Minister Stephen Harper, former US Speaker of the House Newt Gingrich, former UN Secretary General Ban Ki-moon, and many others.
I believe that the Universal Peace Federation and its broad set of partnerships in the realms of politics, religion, academia, media, economy, arts, women and youth serve as a good model. I believe the Universal Peace Federation will become a cornerstone to build lasting peace around the world and a heavenly unified Korea based on interdependence, mutual prosperity, and universal values.
Celebrating 15 years, UPF will continue to grow through service, dialogue, and collaboration, guided by its spiritual and moral vision of one family under God.
So I think that shows a lot of the idealism of Universal Peace Federation, and it shows also this two things come to me. One is the idea of humanity being one family, like one family of humanity, and of course we believe in the presence of divinity as a kind of parent of that family, a parental figure of that family. But drawing together, and sometimes, your family members, you often have some difficulties, some niggles, or differences of viewpoint. But still, you're one family, and that's important. So the other thing that stands out to me is this idea of the multi-sectoral approach to peace. The idea that it's not just politicians that make peace. Politicians can sign a treaty, but actually after the treaty is signed, how do you maintain and heal and bring reconciliation amongst the general population? So you need religious leaders, you need NGOs, you need women's groups, you need youth groups, you need this multi-sectoral approach, you need businesses to invest so that there's mutual prosperity on both sides. On that level, like Ireland, it was when the income differential was reduced, then the potential for peace was much more present. So in this way, we need this multi-sectoral approach for peace. So I'm just going to introduce UPF in the UK. Margaret and I, we've been collaborating for a long time on these, for many years. So let's get on. So we have a structure, we have patrons who are really supporting our work in many ways and have been over many years, some more recent, some older. We have trustees. Again, the trustees also are volunteers, making sure that we are following the law and that we are run the right way. So they're the oversight, and they're actually legally responsible. So we owe a debt to them for their support. Recently, we've been developing this multi-sectoral approach by having people become chairs of those different areas that were included in the video, of religious leaders, of business, of former heads of state, of parliamentarians, of academicians, of art and culture, of media. So we want to work on all of these levels, even if it's just 1 or 2 events a year. But we want to work on each of these levels to make this multi-sectoral approach come to fruition. This is some upcoming events. This is from the business and well-being, redefining prosperity, business and the pursuit of human well-being. So this will also be here. And Kostas Kapellas is heading that up. Another one is on International Women's Day. The Duchess Nevin is really developing this, and I can confirm that Miss England is coming, which is, and I'm sure there'll be a number of others.
It's because of the prize.
There'll be a number of awards. Yeah. Thank you. So these are some of the upcoming events, and there'll be many more, but these are ones we can announce. Recently, we held a World Interfaith Harmony Week event. There's a panel of religious leaders being interrogated by Margaret. They're all very good thinkers. And 2 of those were on this original photograph from about 15 years ago, so we were amazed. And the Arts and Culture for Peace, we had an event on the 25th, and Sangeeta was chairing that. And then 2 days ago, we had a Nepalese cultural event also here. And again, Sangeeta was chair, and Amal Kumar Thapar was helping to organize. And Honorable Eknath Dekal had introduced us to him many years ago. He was a former minister from Nepal. We have our youth area, which Margaret invests in a lot. So these are the podcasts. We held 3 podcasts here last year. And these are nominees for the Young Achievers Awards. So Margaret is arranging the awards to be in early July in Parliament. And then many MPs and lords and baronesses will come and present the awards to these amazing young people, really talented and very bright, courageous, noble people. Yeah. This is... So these are different women's activities that have been happening here. And I think there's one more here in Parliament. And I think Margaret's recent passion is actually promoting men who are supporting women. So then, actually when the original suffragettes were campaigning, they didn't have the vote, right? But men in Parliament often have daughters, wives, who were pushing them, encouraging, nagging, whatever. But actually they supported. So they were, if you are just women, it's half the population, or a little over half the population. If you get male supporters, then you can have a large majority, right? So it's an important area. And Baroness Verma again hosting. We also had 2 events on the Korean Peninsula, and involving think tanks, Representative Chatham House of Stockholm Institute for Security and Development, a former Major General. This is one, this is another. And Dr. Yang, our international president, spoke at this, or chairman of UPF Internationals, spoke at this event. And the reunification and particularly the search for peace and the reunification of the Korean Peninsula is something which is very important to UPF, which is founded in South Korea. And like today, we will at least have 4 of these events, at least 1 a quarter. That will be both in Birmingham and here in London. We've been focusing quite a bit on social media. So it's constantly we're developing a social media foundation. Maybe we need support on Instagram. The Duchess has 1 million followers, and I'm sure a lot of others have many hundreds of thousands of followers on Instagram, but we're weaker on Instagram. But on Facebook, we're building up a foundation. Our goal is to get to 1 million followers in a few years. And these are some of the posts. We like to focus on interfaith, other types of posts. And this is an example of one of the partnerships. So Earth and I was founded by Sun Jin Moon, one of the founder's daughters, and her husband. And they asked if we could support on social media. So we've been supporting them a lot. And Ernst Kanka is our social media officer. He's been doing a lot to support their efforts. So they have a magazine called Earth and I, and it comes both in print and online. And we were supporting some of their events and activities for the last year. Oh, I was doing wrong. So this is World Environment Day we held here. And Cannon Otto. He's also another partner. He promotes sustainability particularly, and he has his own organization called Clean Cyclists, or Clean Recyclers. So he's been supporting our activities a lot as well. This is Peace Road. I don't know if anyone was on Peace Road with us, but Peace Road is, in a sense, it was Father Moon's idea of an international highway connecting all the continents of the world. And particularly they want to push for a Bering Strait bridge tunnel. But here we were commemorating the 30th anniversary of the tunnel between France and the UK. We were long being, we had a long difficulty in, like many neighboring countries, a long history, sorry. But now we have Entente Cordiale. So we were commemorating the 30th anniversary, and part of it was in Coquelles in France, where Keith Best was there with his wife. He has a house nearby, and some French MPs' assistants or staff came to that. And Pab was in Dover, and we all met up for a dinner in Dover. So we had a great event. And we also went to the Battle of Britain Memorial Site, and this place which was reclaimed land from the tunnel itself. So how to get involved? We'll go into this more later on, but there are different ways you can be involved in our activities, either fundraising, helping with social media, and so on, but we will talk about it more later. Okay, that's it for my presentation. So thank you very much. Let me introduce the main speaker for today. So, Rev Dr. David Hanna and his wife, Samanim, Kyunja Hanna, they've made a lot of effort to come here from Colchester today, and they're always supporting our activities. They have been promoting UPF and Family Federation activities in the northern countries of this region, and are focusing a lot on education. So if you're involved with ministers, they're often teaching for different ministers here, which come from time to time. But we really appreciate David's expression of principles of peace for Universal Peace Federation. In a sense, it's very good for ambassadors for peace to think and to reflect on how we can promote peace in our world, in ourselves and the world around us. So Reverend Dr. David Hanna graduated from the Unification Theological Seminary many years ago, his doctorate from University of Wales. And please welcome him with a warm round of applause. Thank you. Thank you, David.
Thank you, Robin. Thanks for your...
Thank you. And
Good morning. Wow. Wonderful. Very good to see you. Thank you for that helpful introduction. To just go on a little journey together to understand more about not only the work of UPF, which we do regularly in various introductory sessions here, but today is to go a little bit more into the religious thought and ideas of the founder, Reverend Sun Myung Moon, and his wife, Hak Jahan Moon, and we're doing that really in response to the interest shown by ambassadors for peace and those involved with UPF. Of course, UPF is a non-confessional organization, so it's absolutely kind of broad and welcoming to all people. Nobody has to adhere to a certain set of religious beliefs or even have any. It's fine. We are working together for a common cause of peace, and that's its strength. However, what motivates and what moves, what kind of principles underline the development of UPF's work around the world? There is something in common there, and this is a chance for those who want to understand that a little bit more. And that's my job today, right, is to put that across in 3 sessions, and then we'll return to Reverend Marsh at the end. He will share something and encourage you and answer your questions. So we're looking today at universal values as a foundation for world peace. So this first session, maybe you've had an opportunity to hear this before, but I always say, yes, this is a look at, we could say, the ideal. What is the ideal? What fundamental principles are we talking about that operate in the universe and should operate in human society and human life? And Father Moon's teaching starts this way, actually. It starts this way with a very developed explanation of what that ideal should be. And that's a very significant contribution to religious thought, actually, which often jumps straight into, after a short introduction, to look at the problems and how to solve the problems. So this is giving us more of a vision to aim for, but of course there's a gap there between the vision that I'm explaining and people's reality or experience of life. And we'll look at the reason for that discrepancy and that difference in the second lecture, but you have to wait all the way till after lunch, right? I know it's hard to ask you to do that, but there we go. I like to start with this picture. Do you remember this, everybody? I feel like I'm talking to a seasoned audience, shall we say, right? But anyway, it's a reminder. This picture came very late in humankind's history. We were out in space and could turn with the use of a camera and take this picture. And we see that the world really has no borders. You know, it's not like a map you see on the schoolroom wall, right, in your classroom. It's quite different. It's much more beautiful, and no lines or different colors according to political bent or whatever. Although, I add something here. There are two borders visible from space. Do you know what those are? One is Israel, because Israel irrigates, and where it comes up against a desert, there you see quite a straight green line, especially on the southern border of Israel. That's interesting, isn't it? And then the other one, curiously, is between North and South Korea at night, because the nature of these two regimes and cultures means that South Korea is a very busy, energy-consuming country, and there are lights on round the clock and are visible from space, but at nighttime North Korea is dark. Right? There's no such light. So you see it very clearly from space, those two. Those two regions of the world have great historical significance in terms of mankind's religious development and how that affects also other aspects of our culture. Then I show this curious graphic, right? This is, well, maybe you can guess, this is what it would look like if all the water, surface water, rivers, lakes, seas, oceans, everything were rolled up into one ball. It would be that big. I can't point it out on a television, but it would be that big. That blue ball represents all the water. And I was amazed when I saw that, because it seems so small, doesn't it? But of course that's because the oceans, and even though they're very big and deep to us, they're not really so deep compared to the diameter of the planet. They're actually quite shallow. And there are two little dots, little balls there. One is the smallest one is the fresh water, which is drinkable, and the other is just the water from rivers and lakes, I think. So, you know, it's interesting, isn't it, that there's really very little. It shows something of the delicate balance which is there, and why we are absolutely called in this age to take care of the environment. That's another area that UPF is working in and branching out into, and has also supporting people who work in that area. So here's a quotation from the founder, just to introduce something of his way of thinking and why, really from first principles, is very concerned about religious unity and the role of people of all faiths, respecting God and other religions. He says here, and it's at a conference that he convened in 1985 called the Assembly of the World's Religions. And he said there, religions should be concerned with God's will for world salvation more than with the salvation of the individual or the welfare of their own denomination. As far as I know, God is not sectarian. He's not obsessed with minor details of doctrine. We should quickly liberate ourselves from theological conflict, which results from blind attachment to doctrines and rituals, and instead focus on living communication with God. Amen. In God's parental heart and his great love, there is no discrimination based on color or nationality. There are no barriers between countries or cultural traditions, between East and West or North and South. So through interreligious dialogue and harmony, we should realize one ideal world of peace. So this approach and this philosophy underpins a lot of the movement's work and the things which Father and Mother Moon started together in what we call broadly the unification movement, a vast collection of organizations and projects that address almost every area of human society. He received a lot of criticism for that in his lifetime. What is a religious leader doing, getting involved in all these things, people would accuse him, right? Well, because it should be that way, was his answer. This is talking about life itself and the future of humanity. We have to be involved and bring these values into every area. So that raises a question, does religion have a contribution to make or not? True religious practice, we can say, it seeks to restore peace and promote certain things, such as humility in front of God, respect to parents, fidelity in marriage, loyalty, public service. These are things that you will find in the world's great religious traditions, almost universally. That's why I'm mentioning them. And also, they'll emphasize personal discipline and sacrifice and control of physical desires, and also restraint and patience and forgiveness in relationships. These kind of qualities are passed on through stories and through central teaching from the world's holy books. And it's encouraging others or us to love others as we love ourselves, or should love ourselves as sons and daughters of God, and value ourselves as temples. And we should love our neighbors and even our enemies. And that's picking up on a radical theme from Jesus. Here's a quotation. I will occasionally use little quotations from world faiths and from different sources. Is that okay? I think it kind of shows that this is the way we think and the way that Father Moon thought as well. He read these texts, such as the Holy Quran. There it says, prayer restrains one from shameful and unjust deeds. So there's a restrain aspect of religious life. And remembrance of God is the greatest thing in life without doubt, it says in the Holy Quran. In the end, in human affairs and the direction that the world's going, there's always a human factor. It comes down to people, doesn't it? Yeah. What is the quality of people? What are they thinking? How are they behaving? This is so important. So human factor is always present, and the integrity of individuals is key. Those who are especially in a position to make decisions and to influence world affairs. How are they as people of integrity? They, in the end, are the people who make decisions, and they have their own characters. We can think of a few, perhaps, right? They have their characters, which are shaped by their experiences and their influences. So this has been a role of religion in historical and sociological sense. So it's to unite based on universal values is one of the goals or the objects of UPF. Say that is what we need to find, these things in common, and we can look to such values that are in common within the world's great religions and philosophies, even though, we or I or anybody may have their own kind of chosen route and something they feel closer to and feel naturally affiliated to. But nevertheless, understanding this and seeing the commonalities in these different religions and philosophies is so important, right? And often it's ignorance which is a cause of the lack of peace and the origin of conflict. So we're encouraging this. And then we have the unification principle. We said here on our advertisement, principles of peace. Yeah, there are different ways of talking about it, but this is Father and Mother Moon's thought, religious thought. And often we call it the unification principle, or sometimes the divine principle, or as a philosophy, unification thought. and as a theology, unification theology, right? So you can find different names, but it's often if you see the name unification, there's a good clue there, right? They're all based and coming out of the same stable. So this is a new expression of religious truth for our age, and very profound and having a great impact around the world, able to reach even some cultures and places that it was hard for Christianity to reach or Islam to reach. It's finding a way in because it is, it's able to engage, I think, with the current trend of, or the product of what is, 21st century rational thought and scientific inquiry. And it's able to embrace that and open many doors to the unity between religion and science. And this is one of the characteristics. It opens a way for a more harmonized view. There's more work to be done. That's why I say opens the way, because it's an ongoing thing. But it's not providing any obstacle to that, and it's encouraging that to really expand our understanding of the world, the inner aspects of human life, and the external aspects as well. So it identifies universal values that are present in major world faiths, and also reveals God as a God of heart. And I'll explain what that is a little bit later. Identifying clearly the importance of human responsibility, and finally it provides an understanding, I would say, for tackling real problems. And that's where we get the kind of development of UPF and other projects which are working with the world as it is and seeking to provide solutions and bringing together good minds and good hearts for that purpose. Huh? Have you ever looked around in a UPF meeting? They're all such nice people, it seems to me, right? And I wonder, why is that? Something brings those people together, right? Intuitively almost. It's not like we have a sign saying only nice people want it, right? No, just naturally, because you're concerned about these things, right? And you're working often in these kind of areas in an unselfish way, and naturally find a home here. Do you feel that? Do you feel you found a home? Yeah, it really is something more than an organization or just a, society or something like that. It's a place where you can find a home and other family members that you can work with. Right? So, well, I do my little bit, Margaret, but certainly it's not enough to do all that. I think that's down to others. So, combining, as I was hinting there before, revelation and reason, these two coming together. I have a little caveat which I add at this point, right? We are talking about these very ideal things, and I already mentioned it's a potential for human beings. So as I get into that, don't feel put off, but actually think, well, yeah, that's expanding the kind of vision that we have of where we want to get back to, if you like. And I'm also freely referring to God and religious concepts. I've done that already quite a lot. That doesn't suit everybody, I quite understand. But nevertheless, I'm doing it largely because this is Father Moon's view and his understanding, and I'm here to share that today. Of course, that's my own personal understanding in there as well. But this is what is an introduction. But I'm saying it in a way which I hope even somebody who's a non-believer would find, well, actually, that's interesting. That explains it a little bit more, why people adhere to these ideas or follow this particular path. So that's a little apology, but I'm also not implying any judgment on people who think or choose to live or behave differently to the examples that I give. I'll be talking about marriage and family in a way which some people may say is rather traditional, but for good reason I will do that, and I'll expand on that as well. So it's that particular voice which you will hear, but as I say, I'm not implying or pronouncing any judgment on somebody who thinks differently. That's fine. If you think differently and can work with us, wonderful, so be it. That's a great, great step forward. So Father Moon's thought starts with understanding God the Creator, this being that we call God, and I'm using that term, as a first cause. So the picture which is built up in unification thought or theology is that God is a being of both internal character and external form, and also, represented by the plus and minus, masculinity and femininity. So these qualities are there within God and these aspects, so that God the Creator is the origin of the internal character or nature of everything that exists in the universe. And also, it's the origin of the external form of everything. So it all comes from this source. You can think of it, my shorthand way of thinking of it, when I talk to myself, I say God is a purposeful mind and heart behind the universe. That's how I kind of feel. Nothing you can see, not like a person you can see, but a purposeful mind and heart, which is very real and behind everything which is created. So also, this Creator God is the origin of the masculine nature of everything and origin of the feminine nature of everything. And I think for a fuller explanation, which I can't give today, but I would go into the kind of understanding like of Taoism, which sees masculine and feminine as complementary parts which make up together a whole which is greater than either half separately, right? Hence this kind of shape with a curvy line. It's bringing those together to make something very perfect. And these are complementary aspects, such that in masculinity and femininity might be included things such as, or qualities like roughness and smoothness, right? Smoothness the more feminine, roughness the more masculine. Okay, you say, but Uncle David, I know a very smooth man and I know a very rough woman, right? Yeah, okay, but that's, we're talking about the general, right? In this way, and still there are those two qualities. And also, in Oriental thought, as soon as you talk about roughness, you're talking about smoothness. As soon as you say left, you're talking about right. If you talk about up, you're talking about down. It's like it must exist. So this is the world of complementary pairs, which is very foundational and also feeds into profound understanding about relationships, because the universe is all about relationships at the end, according to this understanding. So the nature of God is such according to what we see in the world. Nature of God, God has an internal character, which means emotion, intellect, will, these attributes which come down to human beings and we see in other forms of life as well, and also concepts and laws which exist and principles which are there, always the same wherever they are in the universe. So, and they are a certain way. So we talk about God as absolute in that way. And then there's an external form. This is philosophically a new term in unification thought, that God has an external form, but it's nothing you can see. It means original energy or pre-energy. It's where energy comes from and manifests from. And it is that more kind of like a life in everything, which is operating and working. So God is in everything in that sense, but also God is this purposeful mind and heart behind the universe, which is the more internal aspect or character. Everybody with me? Yes. You didn't expect this on a Saturday morning, did you? Right? What are we going to do? Have a nice laze in a comfy chair with a cup of coffee and a... Anyway, right? In the center of this kind of model, and it's very presumptuous to make a model like this, right? But in the center is something called heart, and I mentioned that before. What is this aspect of heart that's at the center of God the Creator? Heart can be defined as the impulse to experience joy through giving and receiving love. Traditionally, in the Christian world especially, it's summarized. If you want to know what God is love, right? Which is absolutely true. But this is giving an indication that there's something deeper. There's something which gives rise to love itself. And this is an impulse to create. So it's the source of motivation for creating. In the first place, why did God create the world? Because he had this impulse, wanting to experience joy through giving and receiving love, and love requires an object of your love. You can't just sit by yourself and love. You have to love something or someone, right? So it requires relationship. And the desire to have that is a desire to create. And that is very fundamental in God, and also human beings have inherited that as well, right? We want to see that kind of development. So it's the source of meaning. Heart is the source of meaning. It's the core of human nature. And we see it operating in all relationships which exist in the universe. And these we talk about as being subject-object relationships. It's a pair system. Everything exists in this pair system. I'll give some examples shortly. Why we say subject? In this philosophy, subject is the initiating partner, and the object is the responding partner. So, for example, it could be mind and body. In a human being, when we're healthy and everything's working well, our mind should be the subject and our body should follow what our mind wants us to do, right? Is life always like that? No, sometimes people find themselves dominated by physical desires, and the body is telling the mind what to do, essentially. So, but originally it should be in this kind of balance, with the mind as subject, body as object and responding. Even, you could say, it's a definition of religion. It's a kind of way of life to have the body obey the mind. It's to get back that original balance right, or order of priorities right. So I'm not dominated by physical desires or things of a more animal nature, but I can control myself, and I can have my mind lifted and elevated beyond myself to something greater and tap into that wisdom of the universe, ideally. But this relationship is also working in any time, especially two people get together and they have a conversation, right? How often does that happen in your day? A lot, right? So at any time, the one who is speaking is the subject. And the one who's listening should, receive that and then respond. So the listener is in the object role. It's more responsive. Are you with me? But then in a good conversation, that swaps around. The person who's been listening is now the subject because they're initiating the next thing. So I say to people sometimes, have you ever had a conversation with somebody and after a little while you just felt, I don't think they're listening to me, right? Anybody had that, or is it just me? And often you notice that that person, it's like you've said something which you thought was, this is quite helpful, right? But they come back just kind of developing what they said before. So they've been using the time that you've been talking to think up the next thing to say, right? They haven't actually been listening to you. And that is what should be, we need, in fact, in unification thought, it's subject consciousness and object consciousness. We need to learn both as we're growing up, how to do both well. It's not one is more important than the other. Both are important, actually, right? And that's a key to good relationships.
But do you think that's why God gave us 2 ears and 1 mouth? Maybe
I do.
It is more important. But I'm a therapist, so I would say that.
Listening, exactly. Yes, also, exactly. Yes, very good. Okay, so we think about other relationships, husband, wife, we can say subject-object, but that's two-way, right? There's also sometimes the wife is the subject and the husband is the object, right? So, yes, okay. We won't go too far into that, Mary. But, it's a dynamic system, right? Because it's more elevated and more interesting in life. So, but always there's this good, harmonious progress comes out of subject-object relationships and how those are conducted. So I say here, through give and receive action, this give and take action, come all the forces that are necessary for existing, multiplying, and acting. So existence, multiplication, and action all come out of these subject-object paired relationships. And in nature, all pairs relate centering on a common purpose. We can call it natural law or something in nature that makes them do what they do, and the result is harmonious and productive. In human society, it's not always that way because we have a free will and we can choose to go a different way. We'll look at that a little bit after lunch. So this external form of God is God's energy in everything. And this means that, well, I've represented it there by those little green arrows. It comes from God, it's invested in each subject and each object and these paired relationships, and it moves them into relationship. It moves all these dual characteristics or pairs to form a common base, and that's centered on a common purpose which comes from the Creator, because anything created has its purpose from the Creator, right? That's where it comes from. It's something very deep and internal. It's like the original plan before you started making anything. That's going to be invested in the result. And this energy produces this movement which encourages unity. What's the purpose of that unity? It's to make something greater than just those individual parts on their own. So, husband and wife will come together to create something. We call it a couple, and then we call it a family when a child is born, right? And it's something of another level to just individual. So when you get married, you have to be prepared to let go of something of your individuality, right? But it's a worthwhile sacrifice because something much greater is waiting for you, right, in that life. So this process in living things and everything in the universe is a foundation for God's eternal existence here. And it also is the source of producing what we call value. So harmonious interaction of subject and object leads to these things that we recognize as, the kind of ultimate goals of life and valuable things in life. Love itself, beauty, truth, goodness, these things. Okay, so in Father Moon's thinking, then, it's very relational, and I would call it a relational theology. That means he talks in the way of God needing human beings, right, to fulfill that desire for joy and happiness. That already is a little bit different. We thought for many centuries that human beings need God in the religious world. We think that way. But now it's saying, well, actually, this is an essential relationship. So God needs human beings. God as a being of heart is initiating as subject love and giving love to human beings who respond. And the response to love is, in this philosophy, we call it beauty. So any husbands here in the room? Mm-hmm. So husbands, you'll find the more that you love your wife, see if you agree with me, the more you love your wife, the more beautiful she becomes.
That's right.
Isn't that true? Yeah. So it's an exchange of love and beauty. If you don't love something, you won't see beauty in it. Right? So, this is also true. Right? So you want to experience that. You come to realize, it's in what we call true love that real beauty exists and fulfillment associated with that. But how to be beautiful to God in response? Well, this is, where a lot of the religious teaching of the world comes in. That means I have to show certain characteristics that appeal and that God can see, oh, that's something of me there in my son, in my daughter. No, there's humility there. That's a very beautiful quality, right? Don't much go with arrogance, right? But humility, yes, that moves God's heart. Honesty also. Yeah, that's very necessary. And trustworthiness. God can appreciate that. And faithfulness and loyalty. And in the Orient, they have a concept called filial piety. Have you come across that? This kind of love of children to parents as well, and particularly, putting, even engaging in your own kind of sacrifice for the sake of the joy of your parents, this kind of idea. So really appreciating where you come from and what you owe to others in life. So these kind of qualities are there, and that's returning something beautiful. So we need to become that kind of person. So interestingly, you'll see in the world's religious traditions stories which encourage these kind of qualities and these kind of behaviors in people. And they, in a way, are saying, this is what we need to do. This is how we need to live. Okay, so we have a world a universe that's made up of complementary pairs. I've got a few of them here, right? On the top right there, you've got a nice lion and his partner, his lioness. Right? Now, she's been out hunting all day. He sends her out hunting. She does all the work, essentially. Comes home exhausted. But it's just so touching how when she's sleeping off all that expended effort, then he's just keeping a watchful eye over her, right? And doing that job. So they have a relationship. They have some necessary and valuable way of working together. Also in the plants, we have male and female, stamen and pistil. Sometimes different plants, you need a male plant and a female plant if you want to get fruit or something like this. And also lightning, is kind of a form of, by this thinking, very rudimentary form of masculinity and femininity. It's that spark when plus and minus come together, provides lightning and electricity. And on the top left, we have ballet dancers. Ballet may not be your thing, but if you go to a ballet, it's interesting to see that often it's the prima ballerina who gets a very loud applause when she comes on, right? More than the chorus. Because she's very good, right? It's understandable. And people love that. And then, wow, the man comes on. He does his thing in a slightly different way. He leaps higher. He's faster across the stage. And people, they like that too. But when do they clap the most? It's when the two dance together. Because that's the male and female coming together. They can do things which they can't do on their own. So it might look as though the lady is flying across the stage, and people, she's flying now, The illusion is there, right? But it's the man behind, sometimes dressed in black and not really seeking attention, but he's enabling it to happen. So in that little exchange, he would be the subject and she would be the object, right? Getting a lot more attention and a lot more affection. So these things, we do this because once it comes in tune with these fundamental principles in the universe, that's when we feel most joy. That's when we feel most happiness. That's when we start to even cry because this is so beautiful. This music is so beautiful, right? The way the orchestra is playing, the way they're harmonizing together, it's just, the internal kind of feeling and thought which is behind it, and the beautiful sound is just playing on my heartstrings. I can't avoid it, right? So this is where, we should be utilizing these principles in our life. And people who create things and they're almost universally seen as beautiful and valuable, then almost surely they're embodying these principles in what they do. Even intuitively, they might not be thinking of it in terms of subject and object or something like that, but once we do, we can start to be more deliberately and effectively creative, actually. So we have what we call in UPF foundation or foundations of lasting happiness, and the first is to find individual peace, the peace within one's own heart and mind, and that's a good relationship between mind and body. So whether centered on God, using that term, or just on our higher values or a higher purpose, this is having good interaction between mind and body, and it's very much the subject of the training we go through as we grow up. It's learning to have the body obey the mind, isn't it? From infant stage, baby stage, infant stage, through to becoming a mature adult. And such a mature person is one whose mind and body have good relationship and good unity, so they become a person of integrity whose words match their deeds. Now, words are associated with the mind, right? And deeds with the body. But when the deeds match the kind of elevated words which I espouse and profess to, then I become a person of integrity. But if I have fine-sounding words and I do the opposite, I'll lose that kind of image of integrity in other people's eyes, right? Nobody will be so impressed. So we have to grow in character and mature in heart. So as we grow to our spiritual maturity as an individual, we're having our body obey our mind, we're becoming sensitive and being able to give and receive love in a true way, and become a dwelling place for God's Spirit, so that God can be like find a temple in myself that is a holy place, and I can therefore be a source of positive love and good elements to others. So spiritual sensitivity is something that we have to develop and grow to become such a dwelling place of God and have this inner peace in our lives. And then we can become have the ability to give and receive true, genuine, altruistic love. We have to learn how to do that, actually. And we learn, of course, from example, and that's part of the purpose of the family that we'll look at just in a moment. So we talked originally about, the importance of the individual and people of integrity, building a peaceful, ideal world. We need to, each of us, become a responsible individual with integrity and develop a heart of love toward others. So we look at these kind of examples. When I was a teacher of religious education for my sins in a inner city school in London, we were given certain figures. I think there were 4. It was these 3, Martin Luther King Jr., Mother Teresa, Mahatma Gandhi, and also Nelson Mandela. These were kind of held up as examples that we should teach the young kids about. And of course they are wonderful examples of human beings, but they're just human beings in the end. And probably you could say each has their own faults, or but nevertheless they have a great example, and we can get endless kind of material out of their lives and their example to help and encourage others. So that's the reason for including it in a school curriculum. But at the end, after teaching that, I always had a question. Only these people, right? I mean, only these 4, There must be many, right? Unsung heroes, and that's also ambassadors for peace too as well, right? So the second is then having developed as an individual and found that kind of peace within oneself and good relationship between mind and body and spiritual maturity, then I naturally, and many people will feel, I want to find a partner with whom I can have a kind of next stage of relationship, an eternal, lasting, valuable relationship, so that we can become 2 halves that make a whole and we can create a family together. It's a very natural desire. I know it's not everybody's choice, but it's a very natural desire to do that. And this is the basis for bringing peace in human society. So UPF emphasizes the importance of the family, even says you can't talk about world peace without addressing the question of the family, right? And in the family, such a mature individual, man, should, come together with a mature individual as a woman, and together they can create this beautiful, harmonious environment where they stand as God to their children. So children born into such a harmonious and happy family will look to their parents and the quality of love between their parents, and they will see an image of God. They will learn about God the Creator, that purposeful mind and heart behind everything, through their parents. That's the natural way, right? They won't do it through, in their late teens, backpacking around India or, experimenting with drugs or doing other things, No, it should be very natural. God devised this system, we can say. Nature devised this system. So such a coming together of husband and wife as subject-object pair with a dynamic relationship, so that is always changing, centering on higher values and a higher purpose or their shared faith in God, can create a beautiful family, and that family becomes a building block for a good society, what in religious terms people would call a kingdom of heaven. That is the fundamental building block or unit, more so than the individual, actually. And out of that, when children grow up in that and learn to love in that environment, then they can go into the world and expand the norms which they've learned there into all their other relationships. That means in the world, we should relate to other people of our similar age as like our brothers and sisters, right? And if I come across an elderly person, maybe for the first time, but it's just helping someone on the bus or, just with some shopping or something like that, I should feel, oh, that is my grandmother, that is my grandfather, and have that kind of heart. What I've learnt in the family should be transferred outside the family as well. And some cultures, emphasize this, and some religious traditions emphasize this. It's something which is very necessary to build and develop. Any being, then, is interdependent. We need other people for our growth and our spiritual maturity and perfection. And we're all created to exist through reciprocal relationships. And I talked there about true, genuine love. This is also learned in the family. True, genuine love, well, Father Moon probably talked more about love, or true love, as he called it, than any other human being, I think. Enormous volumes which talk about this subject. But it's quite hard to whittle it down to kind of a concise. So I had a go anyway, right? His teaching. And one explanation would be, true, genuine love is a deep and selfless love that seeks the well-being and happiness of others above oneself. That's seen as a divine and transformative force that has the power to heal relationships, communities, and the world at large. So that's one. This also includes a kind of healing or restorational element, which may say, well, maybe is it originally to be like that? I think so. I think even in an ideal world, there would be sometimes falling out or differences of opinion or different arguments or this kind of thing. But how do you address those? You address with true love, actually. And that's the solution. So there are some other definitions which I've been collecting. This is from American psychologist Greg Bear. He talks about real love. And true, genuine love is unconditionally caring about the happiness of another person. And this is from another writer, Scott Peck, if you come across him, The Road Less Traveled. The the will to extend oneself for the purpose of nurturing one's own or another's spiritual growth. So where do we learn this true love? Because there is love and there is love, right? Love has all kinds of forms, or, it's not all the same by any means. We're talking specifically and redefining this and saying we need to talk about this more, actually. Qualities of love, genuine love. We learn it in the family. That's why we emphasize this. It's from our parents as our first teachers, and the family then is a school of love, nurturing heart and nurturing character, and it's a primary training ground for all relationships that we're going to have in life. That is the, if it's working well, that's what it provides, right? And that's its potential. And, in relating to brothers and sisters and parents and grandparents, not everybody is lucky enough to have those, I quite understand. But let's look at it as a kind of God-ordained institution or system which is there for the taking. Then the family is a school of morality. It's the basis for societal norms, how people should behave and treat each other, and proper conduct in the wider world. This is where we're going to learn it, right? If you haven't learned it in the family, it's going to be quite difficult to learn, isn't that right? And this is part of the problem that we face today. Where do we learn true love? Well, as a husband and wife, it's seeing God in our partner as we go through life's ups and downs and learn to bond more deeply with each other. We see that the image of the Creator is there in both a husband and wife coming together and father and mother coming together, living for each other. So the family and the wider world are helped in that way, and it's a model of true love to the children, as I said. So really also emphasizing that the family does not then just live for itself, because that's a kind of family level selfishness, if you like. The family, a strong family, has a focus that's higher than itself, should have some altruistic purpose to serve the community. And if the parents are taking the lead in providing that example, children are also learning something valuable about how to serve a wider community and how to take care of others beyond our family. So that's quite necessary. So in Father Moon's thinking, he talks about the 4 great loves or realms of heart, which is an expression that I love very much, right? 4 great realms of heart, experienced and learnt within the family. That's child's love, siblings' love, spouses' love for each other, and parents' love. And he puts it this way. In the family, there are 4 levels: grandfather and grandmother, father and mother, you and your spouse, and your sons and daughters. The world is the extension of these relationships. Thus, you need to love people of the world whose ages are similar to the people in your family in the same way that you love your family members. So this we could call a principle of living for others, or living for the sake of others. And we see it in religious traditions. In the Christian tradition, you have Jesus saying, whoever seeks to gain his life will lose it. In other words, if you're trying to hang on to it in a more self-centered way, you'll lose it in the end. You won't enjoy life. But whoever loses his life will preserve it. Whoever is of that kind of giving mind and heart and seeking to give it away. Love is that thing which, even if you give it away, it still grows, right? And it still returns even more than you gave. So it's a curious mathematics operating in the realm of love, right? It's unlike anything else. Here in the Holy Quran for Islam, do not expect in giving any increase for yourself. Or in Hinduism, in the Bhagavad Gita, of sacrifices, the sacrifice performed by those who desire no reward is the nature of goodness. So I'm not doing it because I'm going to, receive something. I'm doing it because I want to do it. In Sikhism, in the Adi Granth, it says, what is that love which is based on greed? When there is greed, the love is false. talk about false love after lunch, right? So this is all to do with making this second foundation of lasting happiness based on the family. And there's much more to say, but I'm introducing it here. Everybody with me? You're okay? Still got a little energy in you to receive something?
Oh, yes, sure.
Then, to complete this little journey, we need number 3. Number 3, foundation for lasting peace and happiness, is how to find universal peace between human beings and the natural world, our whole environment. This is one of our tasks, and we can say we should have a good relationship with the natural world. And when there's harmony between people, centering on some higher values or higher purpose, or we say God, then we can inherit a right of true ownership and responsible stewardship. And this is how we should relate to the natural world. We can call it dominion through love, caring for the environment, seeking material prosperity for all people and sharing that. So that's mutual prosperity, which is one of those important bylines of Universal Peace Federation. And science and technology should benefit human beings, and they should benefit the natural world as well, to keep this beautiful, harmonious balance continuing, right? And making sure that that is passed on from generation to generation. It includes harnessing and developing, as was said here, science and technology. That development is part of this third foundation, really, to engage in a constructive way and a productive, beneficial way for all humanity. And, so much of our energies have gone into these developments for developing weapons or things which ultimately don't benefit humankind. So we have to rethink that and use our energies in a good way, become true owners and responsible stewards. Here again is Sun Myung Moon, Father Moon, talking in a speech called Everybody Wants True Love. That's rather nice, isn't it? From 1999. He said, "We are born for the sake of love, live for the sake of love, and finally die for the sake of love. Not only people, but all beings desire true love. This is why human beings, as the highest beings in creation, should embrace and love the masterpieces of God's creation and teach creation how to love. All creation is longing to receive and experience God's love through men and women who have become one with God at the pinnacle of true love. It is a shame that we have not realized this degree of love." I said he talks a lot about love, right? So, and thinks a lot about love, right? So very profound teaching in that area. So this is the third foundation of peace. Interesting to reflect that even St. Paul, as a writer in the 1st century, and he said the creation waits with eager longing for the revealing of the sons of God. And I think we can add of daughters of God as well, right? But it's interesting, in the middle of that Roman Empire, he was able to be sensitive to the feeling of nature. Nature's suffering. Why? Because there are no true people who've become spiritually mature enough to take care of this world. And he didn't see it around him. It was not there then, and it's very scarce today, right? So put together, we have these 3 foundations for peace. You might then recognize, if you have a background in Judaism or Christianity or Islam, the religions of the book in particular, or maybe just your intuitive sense. This is talking about something which there are called the 3 great blessings. It's in Genesis 1:28, and it's just one verse. "Be fruitful and multiply and have dominion over the earth." This is God's blessing to our first human ancestors before things went wrong, right? And those 3 foundations, we can say, are, yes, there's be fruitful. This is to be fruitful as an individual, to bear fruit, to be able to pass on to the next generation what you've matured and accomplished as an individual. And then to multiply and to, sorry, too early, to multiply and to have dominion is to fulfill those three great blessings, but in a very realistic way, such that I would say there's nothing in this scheme that we want for our happiness that is not there. And many people, even young people that I talk to, you know, they are lost. They're saying, what's the meaning of life? What's the value of my being here? I don't understand it, right? And tragically, many people start to give up on life because they don't find that answer. But it's here. It's here all the time, right? It's in following this, and that's why we have to get back to the idea that our purpose in life comes not from we ourselves, but from the one who authored and gave us life in the beginning, and we're here for the purpose of realizing this beautiful ideal and doing it to the best of our ability, right? And there are always ways, if I can't do it, maybe I'm, a person who physically is not possible to have children, well, there are ways to adopt or treat other people as your own children and to learn from these experiences. There are ways. And, if I don't have living grandparents and I never got to know them, well, maybe I can adopt somebody, right? And our family can have that kind of relationship. There are ways to do it, because in the end, it's the training, it's the love, right, which is important. So I hope that was helpful to you and gives, like I say, an overview of this original ideal and some of the insights and thoughts which Father and Mother Moon, as we call them, add to religious thought and then underpin a lot of the activities and work of UPF and why we do things the way we do. Right? Thank you very much, everybody. God bless you. Maybe we should say any burning questions? Yeah. Is that all right? Because, yes, please do. Over here, just slightly ahead of Caroline. So we're going to take, yes. You are not a question. No. Oh, just waving. We wave then. Okay. Caroline.
I just wanted to add something that it made me think of the fact that I've got 30 plants at home, and I get a lot of joy from them, and I do talk to them, and I just say, you're doing really well. I know it sounds silly, but I get so much joy, and that is love. I know that I feel a huge amount of love and joy when I see them, especially when they're growing. They're living where they are now.
That's right, and you appreciate the beauty of those as each one, and I'm sure you feel for them in that way, making their effort. And there's something inside every plant, isn't it, with this same kind of drive for life, or the aspect of energy that we were talking there. And it's always amazing. You see a little weed making its way through some concrete or something, and you think, go on, Some people say, pluck it out, right? But you're thinking, come on, you're going to do it. Yeah.
And I think it's not that one validation set. If you know that scientific research, there's a Japanese doctor who studied about how the water change after giving, say, I love you, thank you, and then comparing to other water, the person said, I hate you, horrible. And the substance of that water changed. Do you know that result?
Yes, I've seen those pictures and read about that.
So
very interesting.
Plants as well. So
everything
it's not one way.
Responds. We're made of the same.
That's right. So creating
substance.
Beautiful relationship.
Interesting point. Very good point.
I want to...
Yes, Margaret.
The messages in water. Yes, it's called.
Dr. Imoto or something?
I just wanted to say that before I learned these things, like 25 years ago, or 40 years ago, anyway, I never realized that the people know that we are custodians of the third blessing. I mean, I never felt, I never knew, and I know I didn't throw flowers away or something, but the impact of what I learned in the beginning of my life with unification was great. I started crying when the leaves were coming out beautifully and whatever. It's because I understood that I am responsible also to keep it well. I'm responsible also to do it, because the man and woman are responsible for nature, for everything. That is a great thing to be given by God to us, and we don't know it. You know, it was very interesting for me to get into that realm. You know, so even now I don't find that any man or woman emphasizes that. You know, that why is this not happening? Why? But because we are talking about nature, about the fall of nature. You know, so then now people are interested. But that was the original gift of God to us, to go and help it, do it with love. You know. Anyway.
Thank you. So, Robin, how would you like to organize? Oh.
Yeah, thanks a lot. The presentation is really great. And is it possible to have access to this presentation so that... yeah?
Yes, yes. I'll happily give you the PowerPoint slides. And
okay, great.
There's a video being prepared, which will be watchable. Mm-hmm.
Oh, great. Thank you.
Yeah, good. Luckily, an easy question. Thank you. I like those. Here we go.
Are we going to chat or not?
Any, is that it from, okay. Thank you. Did anyone respond online?
Not at the moment.
No. Okay, no problem. So how about we have two groups?
Yeah.
So you can choose, but we have one group here and one group here. Make like two circles. And if you're on this side, you see that you want to be on the other side, then please be free. But if you could turn around your chairs, and we can make a circle and just have some time of sharing.
Okay, let's talk a little bit about these. Okay. Robin, can you come in? You want to do that? All right. Yeah, hello. Maybe we should change the time. Everybody is late. Today I was trying inside. No, but I mean, just having a little discussion groups, but also introduce them to them. No, I mean, we've had many times that it's sure. I don't know why. Maybe you have to pay more. To make your children better. Okay.
I like to see you. Wonderful. I don't far too much talking already.
If you could say something, if you could say the name first, please.
Amina. Lovely to meet you.
Say your name and talk something.
You don't need to if you don't want to.
My name is Stefan. As your experience.
In the same, I'm hearing everything.
What I can say actually is that the principles are very, very similar.
I ended up feeling love
Very similar.
as it was being shared with different concepts.
Come here.
I started to feel
I came in
and my heart started to just open
it's a common
and feel
reality.
different.
That's why I feel.
So I actually feel a very deep
common
meditative
reality.